Hello, strangers and rangers. We are back with the hopefully final part of Chapter 5 so that I can move on to Chapter 6 next week. I hope that you are enjoying these read-throughs. We are just going to jump right in. The fifth time Lord Voldemort almost catches Harry Potter, Harry almost lets him. He's 17 years old. It's September. It's been months since he has seen Voldemort in person. That is not to say that he has not seen him in his dreams. Scene break. 7. 7 Horcruxes. Harry wants to weep, wants to apparate to Voldemort and shake him, wants to demand he explain why. Why destroy his soul like this? Why tear himself to pieces like this? Why? He doesn't do any of that. He wants to, but he doesn't. He doesn't because, in some way, Harry knows. Fear and hate and so much self-loathing that destroying himself probably seemed like nothing, probably seemed like the best possible outcome, twisting and breaking and marring himself into something different, something new, something so monstrous it could never be mistaken for Tom Marvolo Riddle. With the pale, wispy memory of a young Tom Riddle asking his professor about splitting his soul 7 times still haunting Harry's own memories, Harry finally makes his move on the night of the welcoming feast. If he was at Hogwarts, it would be his final feast, his final year. But he has set himself on this path, running from Voldemort and trying to find a way to piece him back together. Trying to bring back the boy, too smart for his own good and too lonely, that's been long since buried under the face of a monster. The monster that has been pulling Harry into his mind more and more frequently since that day in the woods, where against all reason Harry saved Voldemort's life. He can keep Voldemort out of his own head, but it can't seem to keep Voldemort from dragging him into his own. It's a lot like it was at the beginning of it all, but instead of demanding to know where Harry is, Voldemort coaxes. Paces an elaborate throne room, or an office filled with books and lit with firelight, or a bedroom dripping with so much green Harry wouldn't be surprised if he was told it was Salazar Slytherin's own private chambers. Paces, slow and steady, circling Harry in his own mind like a predator about to strike. Whispers, or perhaps hisses, soft promises to Harry that, if he comes to him of his own free will, Voldemort will show him mercy, that he'll reward Harry, that he'll make a new oath with him, if only Harry will come to him. On the 1st of September, Harry finally gives in a way. He doesn't tell Sirius what he's going to do. Leaves in the middle of the night, holly wand clutched in hand, invisibility cloak wrapped around his shoulders. He'd discarded Greyback's stolen wand the moment he'd turned 17. It hadn't worked well for him, had all of his spells reacting too strong, and finally getting to practice dueling with Sirius in the middle of the woods while using his own wand has felt a little bit like coming home. Apparating to Little Hangleton Cemetery, where Voldemort came back and Harry watched Cedric Diggory die, is surprisingly easy. He stands there for a moment, staring at the angel statue that held him down, letting the cold of the night nip at his face before securing the hood of his cloak and stepping away. The walk up the hill toward Riddle Manor is a short one. From outside, it looks just as abandoned and decrepit as it had been in the visions from his 4th year. As he draws nearer, though, his brow furrows at the feeling of magic in the air, of wards, muggle repellents perhaps, and something else hiding under their protective layer. It has him drawing to a slow standstill, just outside of the wards surrounding the place, face pinched. He hadn't thought Voldemort would want to lay claim to this place, this house where Dumbledore postulated his father lived and died, where Tom Riddle killed him, likely to make one of his very first Horcruxes. Feeling the magic there now, a skill he has slowly developed under Sirius's guidance, he's positive that what he'd thought had been wrong. He reaches out, skimming his fingers across the wards, and feels an echo of sensation along his scalp. Even his body recognizes the traces of Voldemort's magic. There's no resistance, though. Nothing there that would keep Harry out. Not that blood wards would work if Voldemort used his own blood as the key, because Harry's blood runs through Voldemort's veins. Harry's blood was what brought him back in the first place. He eases through the layers of wards, silencing his breath and his footfalls with a quick muffliato as he walks toward the house. The front door is too obvious, but Harry uses it anyway. Alohamora's his way in, pressing into the foyer as slow as he can and shutting the door behind him. Falters the moment he's inside as he realizes just how much the broken down exterior was nothing but an illusion. The foyer stretches out deep into the manor, lit up by a circling halo of crystal dangling from the ceiling, the walls a soft cream and the floors a dark, rich birch wood, shining and untouched by time. It looks nothing like the shambles of an estate it appeared to be from the outside. It looks like a home. It looks like someone's home. And it looks an awful lot like someone is home. Pressing himself back against the door, Harry takes a shuddering breath, grateful that it's so muted that even he can't hear the way it wavers. He's got his hand on the doorknob, ready to back away slowly, when Voldemort steps out from one of the doors and crosses the hall to another, not breaking stride or looking up from the papers in his hands once. There is a very faint sensation of awareness prickling at his scar, but it is nowhere near the usual feeling he'd have from standing near the Dark Lord. He thinks maybe his cloak is buffering it, hiding him from detection, and he has never been more grateful. It gives him the chance to get away before Voldemort ever realizes that he was here in the first place. He should leave. He knows he should leave. But curiosity has gotten the better of him more than once. It's the thing that usually precedes trouble. Harry's already in trouble, so he lets curiosity lead him. Lets it pull at his navel until he's stepping away from the door. Follows it down the foyer to the archway between the two rooms that Voldemort was just in, the first one now empty as sharply and suddenly familiar. The study Voldemort had been dragging him into during the night, with too many books and a big desk and a low fire crackling in the hearth. In the light of day, or rather the light of reality, considering it's the middle of the night, the details of the room stand out more. With a glance over his shoulder, he sees Voldemort moving around a room filled with yet more books. A personal library, perhaps, and it has Harry huffing out a silent breath at the realization that Lord Voldemort is a bookworm. It fits the genius stereotype, at least. Instead of stepping in after Voldemort into his library, Harry drifts over to the study, pauses at the door to take in the dark walls of the hardwood floors. Pauses at the door to take in the dark walls and the hardwood floors. The big desk at the far end, papers and texts strewn over the top. The plush chaise over by the fire, along with a wingback that looks more than comfortable. A subtle striped jade and cream of the lounger, with the throw pillows and emerald contrasting with the warm leather of the chair, respectively. The paintings hanging on what available space there is on the wall above and beside the fireplace. It looks like the kind of room where one would find. Jesus, I'm so sorry. It looks like the kind of room one would find at Malfoy Manor, Harry muses as he pads into the room. Opulent and comfortable, wealth so apparent you couldn't help but notice. Harry tilts his head back, eyeing the same circling crystal he'd seen out in the hallway, light burning softly from within. Opulence. He finds himself gravitating further and further into the room, practically tiptoeing around the edge of Voldemort's desk to peer down at the papers there, squinting at the mixture of research and business, catching sight of something about the Minister of Magic, along with the potential for something called scrying. He doesn't get to try and puzzle those things out, because Voldemort is stepping back into the study, a book in hand, and he's closing the door behind him. Shuffling back from the desk, Harry stares with wide eyes as Voldemort drifts by, book already open and mouth moving as he reads aloud to himself under his breath, a long white finger trailing down the page to keep his place. The sight of it, of Voldemort's gaunt face pinched in concentration, distracts Harry for long enough that he almost doesn't notice the dread welling up in his chest until it's already settled there, a tight knot of apprehensive horror. The door is shut. The door is shut, and Harry is trapped, stuck in the same room with Lord Voldemort, unless he wants to risk breaking out and running for it. Something Voldemort will certainly notice. Harry is trapped. Stuck. He drags his eyes away from the dark wood of the door and back over to where Voldemort has taken his seat at the desk. He's got a self-inking quill in his hand, his other still resting on a page in the open book, blindly jotting down notes onto the parchment Harry had caught sight of the word scrying on, without looking away from the text itself. When Harry risks a step closer, he sees the delicate curves and arches of the words he's jotting down. He's caught on them and how exact they are, on how much they look like the same perfect calligraphy of a diary from years before. He can't quite make out the words. Harry shuffles in that much closer, ignoring the way the nape of his neck has broken into goose flesh, trying to squint at Voldemort's notes. He freezes as Voldemort hisses out a sound. At first he thinks it's Parseltongue, until he realizes there are no words there, and until he looks up from the notes to Voldemort's face. His eyes are pinched shut, his body still, and his head cocked almost like he's trying to hear something. It's not like Harry has ever seen him before, face twisted in concentration, and Harry holds his breath as he realizes why. He's too close. Harry can feel the prickling at his nape and knows that Voldemort must feel something too. Quietly, quickly, Harry takes 3 steps back until the sensation eases back into that faint awareness. With the distance, Voldemort seems to ease. He draws back from his studious slouch, leaning back in the chair that matches the one by the fireplace. His eyes open, staring blindly forward. He brings a hand up to his mouth, elbow resting on the armrest, a repose of thought. Harry Potter, he mutters, and Harry nearly jumps out of his own skin, taking another sharp step back. What are you up to that has you emoting so loudly? Oh. Harry lets out the breath he was holding, shoulders slumping. Oh, Voldemort can feel his emotions too. Feels it like maybe Harry does, as physical sensations trembling across his nerves. He wonders what he's felt from him. Has he felt the elation Harry did when Sirius surprised him with his firebolt on his birthday? Did he suffer over Harry's grief that day in the graveyard less than a year ago? Had he felt Harry's fear when Greyback had licked up the side of his neck and called him pretty? Harry starts again as Voldemort moves, sitting up straight to drag a hand over his pale scalp and plucking up his quill again. Harry wonders if he misses having hair. Knowing he can't get close again, not without giving himself away, Harry stands there and watches as Voldemort gets back to work. He wonders just who has seen Voldemort like this, or even Tom Riddle during their school days, so lost in his studies that he almost seems to tune anything and everything else out. Thinks maybe Harry is the only one, at least in the last few decades. It makes him feel vaguely privileged. He doesn't know how long he stands there watching, surveying the monster that killed his parents while he acts like the man Harry is certain now that lurks beneath the surface. He knows it's too long, knows that he's been here long enough for his feet to begin aching, knows that he's overstayed his non-existent welcome the second Voldemort waves his hand apropos of nothing, opening the door, and Harry catches sight of Nagini slithering her way in. Right. The snake. Fuck. Harry's already moving, easing his way along toward the door, eyes on the sprawling length of Nagini as her tongue sips at the air. Nagini, how was your hunt? The soft hiss of Parseltongue has Harry shuddering. He has never heard it so soft, so casual, has only heard it twisted with anger, has only responded in kind. It went well, master, Nagini hisses back, tongue flicking out again. We have a guest. Voldemort looks up from his book, eyes narrowed. There are no guests here, Nagini. Nagini tastes the air, head tilting up, and Harry's bolting for the door, cursing under his breath, even as she hisses. I smell someone sweet, master. The door slams shut before Harry can get out. Voldemort is on his feet, wand drawn, a snarl on his face. He's firing off a locking charm at the door and a finite in Harry's general direction. It hits true, canceling the charm clinging to Harry's skin, enough so that Voldemort can hear his breathing catch. Sorry, hold on. Enough so that Voldemort can hear his breath catching. Voldemort's head cocks, his wand held aloft, eyes narrowed into dangerous slits of crimson. As Harry backs himself away from the door, clutching his own wand in hand as Nagini rears up with a hiss, Voldemort rounds his desk slowly. Doesn't take his eyes off of where he can hear Harry's shallow breath, even as he reaches for the powder on the mantel and tosses it into the flames with a hissed order at Nagini. Go to my rooms. Wait for me there. Nagini susurrates in protest, but uncoils to slither into the hearth and disappears in a flash of green flame. When she's gone, the flames die after her until the only light is the one shining dimly from the rotating crystals above. Locking the flu network, locking the flu, Jesus, locking the flu network, Harry's only other obvious way out. Voldemort doesn't once lower his wand from tracking Harry's gradual motion along the edge of the room. Harry freezes only when another spell is cast, wordless, but it splashes uselessly against his cloak. A Revelio, Harry realizes. He shudders out another breath, and Voldemort tilts his head again like before. Like when he'd been sitting at his desk, head cocked, like he might hear whatever disturbance he felt prickling along his nerves. An invisibility cloak, Voldemort says, his gaze not quite landing on where Harry is pressed back against the shelves. Impressive. Is that you, Harry? Harry's heart leaps into his throat and lodges there when he catches the way Voldemort's mouth curves up in something like wicked delight. There's no need to be frightened, Harry, he says, taking a slow step forward. I can feel it, your panic. I can practically hear your heart beating right out of your chest. Harry clutches at his wand. His back aches as the shelves dig in at his spine. Have you finally stopped running, Harry? Voldemort asks, closer and closer still, eyes finally seeming to find Harry's own despite the impossibility of it. Have you finally come to give me what I want? To strike a new deal? Have you finally come to me, Harry Potter? Harry's throat works. His mouth is dry. He's shaking. Voldemort is right before him, towering over him, reaching out with his other hand, fingers long and graceful and terrifying. And Harry is ripping through the wards to apparate away before he can think about it. Tearing away just as Voldemort gets hold of his cloak, the world already blurring and narrowing down to a slim tube of light and color. He lands back in the graveyard with a pained grunt, Voldemort landing with him in the grass. Already snarling and clawing into motion as Harry's panic swells up, already grasping and shoving the cloak away from Harry's face and yanking it away from his chest as Harry squirms and scrambles to get out from underneath him until his invisibility cloak is a spill of shimmering material on the grass beneath him, and Voldemort is knocking Harry's wand away and catching his wrists to pin Harry down with the weight of him. A vicious, victorious smile splits across Voldemort's face as Harry pants and tries to push up from under him. Hello, Harry. Let me go, Harry breathes, winded and dizzy, drained from apparating through Voldemort's wards. Now, none of that. You came to me, Harry, Voldemort says. You'll not be getting away this time. Harry bucks, straining against a grip like iron. I didn't think you'd be here. No? Then why did you come? Voldemort's smile takes on a cruel edge. Nostalgia. Did you want to see the place I was reborn again? Or perhaps you came to grieve over that boy. What was his name again? A familiar rage roils up in his chest. Harry feels with it a burst of energy. I'm so sorry. Harry feels with it a burst of energy, enough to have him spitting in Voldemort's face and wrenching his hand free to claw at his cheek with a viciousness that will shock him when all of this is over. It's enough to shove Voldemort off of him so that Harry can scramble over to his wand and onto his feet. Harry levels his wand at where Voldemort laughs, slowly pushing up from the ground to regard Harry with mean eyes and a meaner smile. Hit a nerve? Voldemort asks, just as breathless as Harry. Your anger is a revelation, Harry. Have I ever told you that? His name was Cedric Diggory, you bastard. Harry snarls, and he died for nothing. You murdered him for nothing. He died because he was in the way, Voldemort says, holding his hands away from his sides. And I was not the one to cast the curse. No, it was that rat Peter Pettigrew under your orders. Harry snaps back, already stepping slowly away as Voldemort watches him. How is Peter, by the way? Still a miserable coward? My, you must truly be desperate for followers if that's what you'll accept. Voldemort takes a deep breath, tracking Harry's movements with his eyes. He's smiling again, a horrifying satisfaction on his face, and on Harry's next step back, he steps forward. Not a fan of the man that betrayed your parents, Harry? Voldemort asks, almost sweetly. He has his uses, but if you truly wish it, I could summon him here for you. Harry falters, his throat going tight. What? Come now, you can't tell me you're above a little vengeance. Voldemort lifts his face as if scenting the air the way Nagini did earlier. I can feel it, how much you hate him. That's practically euphoric, your rage. I don't... Wouldn't you like to see the night leave his eyes, Harry? Voldemort stalks another slow step forward. I could give that to you. You're sick! I'm striking a new deal. Pettigrew for the prophecy, Voldemort insists. I'm reasonable. Harry barks out a laugh. Yes, because senseless murder is reasonable. Not senseless. Vengeance. Voldemort holds out one of his hands toward Harry, like an offer, and Harry is struck by a sense of jarring déjà vu, remembering a circle of fire, a mirror, a stone burning in his pocket, and a devil offering him a deal. What do you want, Harry? Name it. Give me the prophecy. Stop this game, and I shall give you whatever you want. The stunner is firing from his wand in an instant, clipping Voldemort in the shoulder and sending him stumbling back. I want my parents back, you prick! And then, as Voldemort regains his footing, Harry takes off, running in the opposite direction, dodging past the headstones, hearing the crash of spellfire at his back. Harry knows he only has enough energy for perhaps one more apparition. Harry knows he can't leave until he gets what he came here for. Harry knows he'll never get this chance again. He's already puzzling at how to circle back to Riddle Manor without getting caught. As he runs, he pulls his hood back up, disappearing into nothing, his scar aching sharply as Voldemort loses sight of him. He heads for the only other building near the graveyard, a broken-down shack with a garden overrun with weeds and a snake tacked to the front door. It's familiar in a vague way, like maybe he's heard someone describe it. Behind him, another spell slides by. Voldemort calls after him. Harry practically breaks the door down when he bowls into it, tumbles into the messy, dusty hall, head already spinning with spells to keep Voldemort out, at least long enough for Harry to catch a breath. He tosses a shield up as big as he can make it, followed by as many wards as he can easily name, until a barrier stands between him and where Voldemort stops just beyond the doorway. Slumping back against the floor on his elbows, Harry stares up at Voldemort. He's agitated, pressing a palm to the vaguely shimmering barrier between them, his wand touching it and coming away with a shower of sparks. His smile is a snarl of teeth. He stares down at Harry, the invisibility cloak splayed open and hood knocked off when he fell into the shack. This will not keep me out long, Harry, Voldemort warns. Come out before I have to break in. Chest heaving, Harry props himself up onto his hands, a reply already burning the tip of his tongue when he stops. With the barrier between them, Harry can't quite feel Voldemort, can only feel the muted throb of his anger and perhaps something like delight of all things. Can't quite feel the usual tingle of proximity. So when he hears that buzzing, that whispering of Voldemort, Harry stalls, feels the tingle of recognition in his nail beds, knows it for exactly what it is. His head turns, gaze falling beyond the crooked archway leading into what might have once been a sitting room. There's a Horcrux here. Here, in this shack, not buried away in Riddle Manor like he thought. Harry? Voldemort hisses, but Harry barely hears him. Not over that whisper. Dazed, much like he'd been the first time he'd held Tom Riddle's diary and Slytherin's locket, Harry pushes to his feet. Drifts from the hallway, from the sound of one of his wards already cracking, from Voldemort calling for him. It's ringing in his ears by the time he gets to a spot in front of a collapsed fireplace, pulsing through his veins as he comes to a stop over a creaking floorboard, driving him down to his knees, urging his fingers into the cracks between the splintered and rotting wood, coaxing him into dripping into ripping open this hidden place, so much like the loose boards under his own bed at Privet Drive, hiding his most sacred possessions, until he can see it. The box, small and unassuming, in black satin. Nestled under the floor like the worst kind of secret, between pieces of straw and the dirt. Harry has it in his hands and open before he feels the sudden crash of his wards coming down, feels the break in his barriers. And then Voldemort is there, in the crooked archway, staring at Harry in growing horror. Fear so thick and overwhelming that it leaves no room for rage. Harry quivers with the way it brings tears to his eyes, with the way the broken piece of soul caught in this ring seems to rattle with agony, with disappointment and mourning. What did you do? Harry whispers, voice cracking down the middle as he cradles the box carefully between his palms. Oh, Tom, what did you do? Somewhere in his chest, Harry's heart breaks. In the archway, Voldemort is frozen. His eyes are on the Horcrux in Harry's hand, wide and red and scared. Harry doesn't think he's ever seen the Dark Lord scared. When he looks up to see the expression, a rictus of terror on his monstrous face that's so human, it does not bring him any satisfaction. You will give that to me, Voldemort commands, voice rough and low. You will give that to me, Harry Potter, and I will let you go. But Harry is already shaking his head, tears rolling down his face as a grief that is not his, not Voldemort's, but was Tom Riddle's, rips past his ribcage. Can't you feel it? Harry asks, desperate. Can't you feel what you've done to yourself? A shaking, half-hearted snarl curls over Voldemort's mouth. What nonsense are you babbling about? A fury ripples up, hot like dragon fire, at the back of his throat as he slashes a hand through the air, accidental magic sparking enough to cut Voldemort's voice off before he can hear an excuse. He shoves up, Box holding the ring tight in his grip. He shoves up, Box holding the ring tight in his grasp, even as he holds it out like evidence. You've torn yourself apart so much you can't even feel the agony of it anymore. Harry snaps, magic crackling around him. You thought you were making yourself invincible, immortal, but you destroyed yourself. Voldemort rips into motion. Harry's accidental spell breaks and Voldemort catches him by the shirt front to shove him back against one of the molding, rotted walls, hard enough for Harry's vision to go spotty. He goes for the ring, but Harry has already snapped the box shut and tucked it into his fist. What do you know, Potter? Voldemort sneers, wand clattering to the floor as he catches the wrist with the hand that's holding the Horcrux, squeezing until the bones grind in protest, catching Harry by the jaw with the other, and the fear has bled away into wrath that scorches Harry's skin and has him crying out. What has that old man told you? What do you know? Harry shoves a fist against Voldemort's shoulder as the grip on his jaw has the joint protesting. He grunts, fighting that impossible hold, Voldemort's rage throbbing in his scar until he nearly goes cross-eyed from it, and he has to blink past the blood that rolls down his brow and into his left eye. You will tell me what you know, Voldemort hisses, using his hold on Harry to bring him forward and then slam him back that much harder against the wall. You will give me my ring back. You don't deserve it back. Harry spits, clutching at Voldemort's wrist and trying to peel his hand away from his face. You gave it up! A piece of your soul! You don't even care! You don't deserve it! Voldemort's gaze hunts over Harry's face, his voice a hush of horror. You know what it is. You don't deserve it back, Harry insists, dazed at the conflicting rush that comes through their connection. You have to earn it back. Earn it? The insidious hiss has a shudder rippling up Harry's back, even as Voldemort's grip lowers, long fingers wrapping around Harry's throat. No. I will take it. Voldemort squeezes. Harry can't draw a breath. His temples, his teeth throb. He clutches tight at the box in his hand at Voldemort's wrist. His voice catches on a whine, desperate and reedy, and his vision blurs at the corners. Voldemort eases up. Harry chokes down a stuttering breath, coughing, face burning with a sudden blush of blood. Leaning in, Voldemort sneers down at him. He clatters Harry's hand back against the wall again. He presses his thumb at his fingers and his fingers in under Harry's ears, forcing another whimper of a sound from Harry's gaping mouth. I cannot kill you, Harry Potter, Voldemort says, but I can do this all night. Blinking the fresh wave of tears from his eyes, Harry bucks against Voldemort's hold. I won't hurt it, Harry whispers, rasps, voice a thready gasp. Harry whispers, rasps, voice a thready gasp that has Voldemort pausing. I won't destroy it. I'll keep it safe, I swear. An oath, shiny and new, begins to settle into the room. Voldemort rears back, face twisting in confusion. What? I could have destroyed the locket, Harry confesses, throat working against Voldemort's hand. I haven't. I've kept it safe. For over a year. A new wave of horror washes over them. Voldemort's emotions welling up into a terrible sensory feedback that has fresh tears rolling down Harry's face. Helplessly, Harry squeezes at Voldemort's wrist. I'll keep them safe. I swear it, Harry says, feeling the threads of the oath reaching out to finish the pact. If you let me go, right now, no harm will ever come to them. And if I don't, Sirius Black will take the locket to Albus Dumbledore and see it destroyed by the sword of Gryffindor. Voldemort rips away from Harry with a hiss. Slumping against the wall, Harry rubs at his throat, coughing weakly as Voldemort watches him collect himself, as Voldemort silently summons his wand, as Harry regards him with utter caution. I accept your oath, Harry Potter, Voldemort finally says, after such a long silence that Harry thought perhaps he'd gone deaf from all the blood rushing back to his head. But the next time I catch you, and I will catch you, you will give them back to me, unharmed, or I will send my Death Eaters to destroy everything you hold dear. Harry doesn't nod, doesn't reply. What could he say to a threat like that? Instead, without another word, Harry summons his own wand where he discarded it for the floor upon finding the Horcrux, turns, and apparates away. He lands on his knees, right on the edge of his and Sirius's camp. Sirius is out of the tent in an instant, Harry's scrawled note clutched in a fist, eyes wide with worry and relief. Sliding to his knees through the brush, Sirius catches Harry as he slumps forward against him. He cradles the back of his head, mouth pressing into the mess of his hair, already muttering a string of chiding curses as Harry buries a hand into Sirius's shirt. I was so worried, Pup. Sorry, Harry mumbles. I got it. Face going slack, Sirius draws back, taking Harry's face between his hands. You got it? Harry holds up the box with a little waggle. Barking out a laugh, Sirius kisses Harry's brow. Utterly mad you are. Gotta stop hanging out with me so much. Harry huffs, smile lazy and slow. I'm tired, Padfoot. I can imagine, Sirius says. You'll tell me all about it in the morning, and then we'll move. Albania, Harry mutters as Sirius hefts him to his feet, and then when Harry sways up into his arms. Albania, tomorrow. Tomorrow, Sirius promises. With that promise ringing between his ears, Harry's head lolls against Sirius's shoulder. Cradling the box, holding Voldemort's Horcrux against his chest, Harry sleeps. Scene break. The sixth time Lord Voldemort almost catches Harry Potter, Harry takes a nosedive off of the side of a cliff. It's the end of February. Harry is 17 years old. He's been on the run for just a little over 2 years now, his search through the woods of Albania for Ravenclaw's lost diadem. His search through the woods of Albania for Ravenclaw's lost diadem has been fruitless and long. He's tired. Scene break. Bill Weasley gifted Sirius and Harry an international portkey back in the spring on the day that Harry got caught by Fenrir Greyback. Its goblin-made, tiny twisting globe keyed into every Gringotts bank around the world. All you have to do is tap your wand to indicate the destination you wish, let it turn, and follow the pull. The closest bank to Albania is a branch in Bulgaria. It takes them almost 3 weeks to hike their way there, both Sirius and Harry too unfamiliar with the area to try apparition, and both unwilling enough to risk any wizarding spaces after the threat Voldemort offered Harry. The same threat that Harry told Sirius all about. The same threat that Voldemort repeats almost nightly now, after yanking Harry into his mind while Harry sleeps. Still, Harry has never been outside the United Kingdom. They've spent the last 2 years popping from place to place on the islands, Ireland and Scotland and Wales and England, but not anywhere else. So for Harry, it's a new experience and one he savors. It's a bit like backpacking, the way he's heard people his age doing after they finish school. And the food and the culture and the people and the places all fascinate Harry. He wonders why they hadn't hopped off the mainland before this, and then remembers how much more difficult it will be to get back home and get more information or letters or supplies from those who are missing them both. They spend the next 6 months hunting through the woods of Albania, fighting off winter snow, spending any holidays toasting with a bottle of aged fire whiskey, and any free time amusing each other with stories and small pranks and practicing dueling. Harry thinks that by the end of it, his hair has been dyed 50 different colors, he's tricked Sirius into eating the twins' puking pastils a dozen times, and he could apply to be an Auror and pass with accolades. Thinks he could get a mastery in defense and charms if he really wanted to. It's all he can do to pass the time, practicing and studying the texts and combining all sorts of new things together in a way that even impresses Sirius. It's the end of February when Harry goes for the last possible location where the diadem might be hidden, if it's still in Albania at all. It's the end of February when he finds its original hiding place, the place where Tom Riddle must have found it years ago, and trips over the wards left there without noticing because they're so old he can't even feel them. It's the end of February when Voldemort finds him. Sirius is an hour away in a nearby town getting them some more food, and Harry is running, bolting away from Voldemort even though he knows Voldemort can't actually kill him. He's not ready to be caught. He still has things to find, to see, to do. The flash of spellfire burns past Harry as he runs, red and vicious and singing in the air. The peat and dirt and dead leaves are wet from the constant rain. It makes keeping his footing more difficult, makes dodging a slippery kind of hassle. He grunts as he goes sliding around the trunk of a tree, vaulting quickly over the fallen mess of another as another spell is hissed and cast and tossed at his back. Clothes soaked, hair in his face, Harry Potter runs. There's mud on his shoes and his jeans, and he thinks maybe his face. He longs for a warm shower as the cold seeps into his bones, despite the burn of his legs and his lungs. He just has to go a little faster for a little longer. Just has to get through to the clearing he sees ahead of him. It's instinct and the reflexes of years, childhood and adulthood, that keep him from going over the sheer drop on the other side of the tree line. A cliff face. Harry slides, drops onto his back and claws at the wet earth to slow his momentum, feels the debris of the forest seep into the folds of his clothes, feels a rock slice across his palm as he clutches it and comes to a stop with his feet hanging over the edge into nothing. There is a crack of apparition behind him. Harry grunts and drops his head back, unaware or perhaps uncaring of the mud and muck that clumps into the mess of his hair. Harry Potter, comes the soft, sibilant hiss of a voice he has heard in his dreams, in his nightmares, in his waking hours, for years. Slowly, carefully, Harry twists over and pushes up onto his hands and knees. He stays there, short breath fogging in front of his face, and his pursuer lets him. Harry has no doubt of that. He's being allowed this respite, this small moment to catch his bearings, heart pounding in his ears, blood singing. It seems I have finally caught you. Harry barks out a laugh, head tilting and twisting to stare at the man standing at the edge of the forest. He looks untouched by the elements, but Harry knows better. Can see the small tells, the open robe, black as pitch, the muddy boots, the faint flush of his cheeks, his ears, his knuckles as he clutches the bleached white wand at his side. Voldemort stares him down with red eyes, hardly out of breath and still looking completely winded from the chase. As Harry rocks back, sitting on his heels with his hands on his knees, he offers a smile that holds no kindness. Voldemort's grip on his wand grows impossibly tighter. Don't, he hisses. But Harry is already clicking his tongue. Sorry, Tom, he says. Better luck next time. And then he pushes himself off the edge of the cliff. Scene break. The seventh time Lord Voldemort almost catches Harry Potter. He actually does catch him. Right before he's about to use his fancy little international portkey and whisk himself away, right before the tug at his navel, the sudden pull, Voldemort is there catching him right around the middle. Harry has to give it to the Dark Lord. He's certainly determined. End chapter 5. And that is it for chapter 5. I know that previously I have stated that I would only do the first 5 chapters for public consumption. And then I would start making it so that if you wanted them, you'd have to become a patron. But I have actually decided to push that out to chapter 10, just because, I don't know, I want to be nice. So I'm going to do that. I may make it so that my patrons get those 5 early. So if I do the video on Monday, I'll give them access to it, and then maybe I won't give everybody else access to it until like Friday or something. Not really sure how I'll do that. But either way, I am intending on sharing more of these chapters for people who don't want to become a patron. But then after chapter 10, I might change that, maybe 13, because I like that number better. Either way, there will be a point in time where most of the chapters are in fact behind the patron kind of paywall. So if you would like access to those, it's $10 a month. Don't even necessarily have to, continuously buy in. If at one point you want to, like 6 months down the line, you want to check in and pay $10 and then listen to all of it and then call it done. That is a way to go about things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in chapter 6. Bye bye.